Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to have a look at another collaboration beer. So this one is half Danish on the home side, half Croatian on the away side. Both of the breweries involved in this one have featured on the channel a number of times before, and I've had very good experiences with them. When it comes to the Danish brewery, I would say they are best known for their different types of New England hazy, whatever you want to call it, IPAs, whereas the Croatian brewery have done a little bit of everything. They're very solid all round and they are very experimental, and also one of the first Croatian breweries to break outside of Croatia, in fact. So yeah, always cool to try new beers from them as well. But the one that we're going to have a look at today is a style that I know both breweries can do very, very well, so it should hopefully be very, very interesting. Needless to say, I'm very curious, so hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head for the home side of things, over the Øresund to Copenhagen in Denmark. We're going to go to the northwest of the city, to Herlev, and that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from the wonderful Gamma Brewing. So this particular beer is called Echo Chamber. It comes in at 8.5% ABV, and this one is a double IPA. I don't know if we can call it a New England hazy because it does only contain oats rather than barley, oats and wheat, so we'll just need to see. It might be more of an American IPA, but regardless, this one is brewed in collaboration with the Garden Brewery, who are from the Croatian capital Zagreb, and we actually filmed an out and about video there for the channel during the summer, which was really fun in fact, so I would recommend you go and check that out, and if you find yourself in Zagreb, do go and visit them. But yeah, this should make for a really interesting collaboration. My first beer from Gamma in a wee while, and also my first beer from Garden Brewery in quite a while too, and my first Danish-Croatian collaboration as well, if memory serves me correctly. But let's crack on with this one then and see what we have. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the breweries before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. You'll find all the usual links in the video description below. That's the brewery websites, the link to my other reviews that I've done from both Gamma and Garden Brewery before, and we will add more to that list in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support you give is massively appreciated, and remember as well that you can go into the home page and search for beers using the geography-based tagging system. Put your local county, city, state, prefecture, whatever it is, into the search bar and they will come up, and you can of course check out the playlist of beers from different countries too. You'll find this one in both the Danish and the Croatian playlist. But yeah, let's crack on then and talk a little bit about the brewery. So we'll kick off with Gamma Brewing then, since these guys are the home brewery in this instance. So, as I mentioned to you already, Gamma Brewing Company are based in Herlev, to the northwest of central Copenhagen, and the company was founded back in 2015 by 4 friends who were bartenders in the various beer bars around Copenhagen. But they often talked about how it would be cool to have their own brewery one day, but little did they know that day would come quite soon. So in the early days, they took in another co-owner, and so the brewery team is Jakob, Anders, Jesper, Koy and Nick, and they all had a little bit of home brewing experience, and 2 of them had also worked for the Ulsnegern in Copenhagen, who went on to purchase the former Stronzo brewery in Gorløse, and it was this that would become Kollektivet. But one of the co-owners is also a co-owner of the May Ulsnegern bar in Aarhus as well. But apparently in the early days, the guys who formed Gamma Brewing were invited to join Kollektivet. They got a good deal on a 20 hectolitre tank, and they started the brewery with none of them having had any experience of running a business. But needless to say, it went very well for them, and they expanded twice, and at maximum they were producing 500 hectolitres of beer per year during their time at Kollektivet. So that's about 500,000 litres, which is pretty damn impressive. But Kollektivet, of course, has been home to a number of breweries. Ulsnegern brew their beers there, Gamma did, Dry and Bitter I think still have their brewing their operations there, but Ulsnegern also brewed the Bad Seed beers under contract until they got their own brewery up by Aalborg, and then Ghost Brewing and Rooster were also brewing there at one stage as well. Ghost Brewing are of course now brewing at Amager Bryghus in Kastrup. But in July of 2020 they announced that they would move to a new brewery in Herlev, and they worked on building this facility up over the next few months. But in February of 2021 they produced their last beers in Gorløse before they moved to the new site in Herlev, and the first beers were released from the Herlev brewery in March of that year. Over the last little while, they have, of course, just been focusing on mitigating all the things that went with COVID. And as of October 2022, Gamma have produced around 215 different kinds of beer. And like I mentioned to you, this brewery are known mainly for the kind of New England hazy, whatever you want to call them, IPAs. They have done a number of sour beers like Berliner Weisses and Goses and things like that. So I will need to see about trying one of them at some point, because I think I still haven't reviewed a sour beer from Gamma Brewing actually, but yeah, that is something that I will be checking out over the next wee while. So yeah, that's everything you need to know about Gamma Brewing for the moment. If you want to learn more, you can of course check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Untappd page or some of my older reviews to learn more about them, the different beers that they've done. So yeah, let's go on then and have a wee look at the Croatian side of things then, the Garden Brewery. So the Garden Brewery, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Zagreb, the Croatian capital, and the company was founded by Nick Colgan and David Plant. So Nick is from Birmingham and is a music promoter who worked all over the world, but back in 2006 he visited Tisno, and he has been instrumental in helping this area make its name make a name for itself within the music festival industry. But the festivals are still quite small and quite intimate, of course. But while organising the event one year, Nick complained to David that they'd had to sell one of the big brands of beer at the festivals, and so David actually suggested that they make their own beer, and it just went from there. But the brewery were the first in Croatia to make their beers available in cans, and I think the very first beers we tried from Garden Brewery were canned actually, but they've had great success in doing this. In 2016 they began their exports to Germany, and they've spread throughout Europe ever since then. But the brewery itself is located in the southeastern part of Zagreb, and the guys also own the Garden Resort in Tisno on the Dalmatia coast, the Barbarella's Discotheque in Pirovac, and also the Garden Lounge in Zadar. So I'll need to make sure that I go and check out these places the next time I go to Croatia. I still need to go down and see the southern part of the country, in fact. But they also recruited Nick Calder-Scholes as their brewer from 4 Pure in London, and he was later replaced by Tom O'Hara, who remains in charge of the production, of course. And they've got quite an extensive brewing team there. It's actually a fairly big operation when you go and look at it. But over the last few years, they've been increasing their export and building up the facility, and it is very impressive. Go and check out my Out and About video, and you can get a little look at that. But as of October 2022, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 245 different kinds of beer, and yeah, they do lots and lots of different things. You know, you can get IPAs, you can get sour beers, lagers, you know, adjunct stouts and things like that. You name it, Garden Brewery will have had a go at brewing it. But yeah, that is all I can really tell you about Garden Brewery for the moment. If you want to learn more, again, check out the brewery website, follow them on their usual social media, or you can go to the Untappd page and see all the different beers that they've done. They are releasing quite a lot actually. They're a pretty damn prolific brewery, I have to say. But yeah, they are, you know, pretty damn good at the same time. So yeah, you can check out the Untappd page or some of my older reviews, but Garden Brewery is one I would like to review a little bit more often on the channel, of course. So yeah, let's crack on then and see what this beer has in store for us. That's all you need to know about both of the breweries. So let's have a wee look at the artwork on this one before we open it up. So I actually bought this beer at Kiosk over in Copenhagen, one of my favourite destinations to buy beer. Over there, it's usually there or Beer Hive that I get most things from. But yeah, you can see the artwork on this one is typical Gamma. You can see you've got the nice wave on the sticker there, which I always like. You can see the Gamma Brewing Company symbol, and there you can see the Garden Brewery as well. But like I said to you, this one is an 8.5% double IPA. It's only got oats in it rather than oats wheat. It's got barley and oats, I should say. It doesn't have any wheat in it, so I'm not sure if we can call this one a New England. We'll just need to see. But it's hopped with Eldorado, Idaho 7 and Mosaic. We know all of these hops quite well. Eldorado, if I remember rightly, is about 12% alpha acid. It gives you a lovely big kind of mango-y and pineapple-y note, but a bit of passion fruit as well. Idaho 7 is about 14% alpha acid. It tends to give you the really soft tropical fruit notes, you know, mangoes, papayas, apricots and things like that. And then Mosaic is about 14% alpha acid again, and that gives you a nice big kind of juicy tangerine quality. And all are American, I can't remember if I said that. But yeah, 440 milliliter can, this one, 8.5% double IPA, echo chamber. Let's get this guy out and we'll see what we have. Looking forward to this one. So let's do this. This should be pretty damn good. There we are. So, I think we've got about 80% of the beer in the glass at the moment. We can leave it at that for just now. So, as you can see, this beer has poured really quite nicely actually. Before the head disappears, I think we can say it's poured with about a 2/3 finger of a kind of bumpy white head actually. It's not the foamiest of heads that I've seen. And I would say, I think that's perfect white. And that is going to fade away to just be a kind of thinner, foamy layer actually. But in terms of the colour, this one looks pretty interesting. It's got a nice kind of dark, sort of mixed tropical fruit juice colour to it. This one, a kind of dark, rich yellow. You can see one or two big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass, a few little ones going up toward the bottom of the head there. But yeah, that head is just fading away. But like I say, this one kind of reminds me of a mixed tropical fruit juice. But remember, the colour of your beer depends on one, type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. Any barrel you do or adjuvants you put in will affect the colour too, but when it comes to IPAs, for the most part, you don't have to care about those latter two variables. Now, one other thing I'm noticing is that the level of haze in this beer is pretty damn impressive. So yeah, this one, it does seem quite soupy and gloopy, but if we put the light through it, you can see there is a little bit less opacity closer to the edge of the glass. But yeah, lovely. Yeah, it's got a lovely kind of big, it does have a lovely big kind of thick, hazy, soupy, gloopy sort of thing to it actually. But yeah, remember the level of haze in these beers usually depends on the oak content, wheat content, and to a degree the yeast. This beer does not contain wheat, so yeah, most of the haziness in this will be due to the fact that it's unfiltered and I guess the yeast and the oats. But yeah, that has faded away to be a nice kind of thinner foamy layer, but it looks very, very nice actually. So yeah, in terms of what you would expect from the appearance of an IPA these days, nothing particularly surprising about this one. But let's have a wee look at the aroma then and just see what we get. This should be quite nice. Oh yeah, I'm going to say straight away, you can tell that this beer is more kind of oaty leaning. It's big, big, thick and creamy actually. I'm not sure exactly how old this beer is, but we'll come to that in a second. I've got a feeling this one might be about a month or 6 weeks or something like that old. We'll need to see, but it still smells pretty fresh in any case. But yeah, for me, you can smell straight away that this one's a big sort of oaty, kind of creamy New England IPA. Lots of lovely, soft, juicy fruits in there. And the green component is quite, it does have quite a nice big kind of floral element to it as well, which I'm quite enjoying, I have to say. Yeah, aroma-wise, this is very, very nice. So, yeah. Just to break that down for you a wee bit more, one thing that I've always said is that there are 6 things you should think about in a New England IPA. The 6 different elements. You get the farmhousey, yeasty character, the rye and grainy side of things. Those tend to be a little bit more prominent in American brewed New Englands, but you've also got wheaty bitiness, oaty creaminess, barley malt bread, and the sort of sweet side of the malt base as well that you can look at. So yeah, this one for me is definitely a big heavy oat leaning thing. But let's break the aroma down and just describe it a wee bit more in depth. So when it comes to that side of things, you've got a lovely little bit of a kind of fresh white bready bread crust in there. So you can feel the backbone of that fresh white bread crust. It almost smells as if it's still got some of the flour on the crust actually. It's kind of like that. But then yeah, above that you're getting the things that we've seen in these beer styles before, or this type of beer before I should say. So you've got a little bit of a kind of Jacob's cream crackery sort of thing. But really above that you've got a big kind of fluffy white bready character. Yeah, so big fluffy white bread. You can smell that thicker white bready note in there as well. So that's all from the barley malt actually. So it doesn't smell quite as thick as you'll get when there's a bit of wheat in there, but at the same time it smells quite fluffy but quite dense. And above all of that you're getting the big oaty creamy sort of thing. And yeah, it's quite straight shooting in its malt base actually, I have to say that. So I wouldn't be surprised if this has got a little bit of golden promise and stuff in it too, and a few different varieties of oats. But yeah, fresh white bread crust, a little touch of Jacob's cream cracker, but then lots of kind of dense and still fluffy fresh white bread, and then some oaty creaminess sitting on top of that. Above all of that, you've got a nice little bit of a kind of Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy type thing, which I really like. Yeah, you can definitely smell that, and that of course will be covering some of the booze in this beer at 8.5%. It's a fairly heavy double IPA, this one. It's kind of almost bordering on triple territory actually. I think once you get above 9%, then yeah, you need to call that a triple. But yeah, aroma wise, the malty and yeasty side of thing in this beer is really, really nice. When it comes to the green component of this beer, it's kind of as you would expect. You've got a little touch of earthiness there, which will be from the mosaic. You have got a nice bright and slightly oily floral component to this one, and you've also got some zesty kind of grassy character as well. So yeah, I really like how this goes together. So on the grassy and zesty side of things, it's yeah, on the grassy and zesty kind of things, it's really bright, and it just gives the beer, it really balances it out and gives the beer that wee bit more zestiness, because you've got a lot of tropical fruit in this one. But remember, New England IPAs rely on late addition and dry hopping. You've got three kinds of hopping, of course. West Coast IPAs will use all three, but early addition hopping, first hour of your wort boil, gives you mainly bitterness. Late addition hopping, last half hour of the wort boil, that gives you a little bit of bitterness, but mainly flavour and aroma. And then you've got dry hopping, which comes after the wort boil, and that gives you pretty much all flavour and aroma. New England IPAs rely on late and dry hopping, actually, as well, like we've said. But yeah, with this one, you can smell the green component is very, very bright, and that's what gives it away. As that it's early and that is late and dry hopping. Sorry, if it's more deep and dank, that's when you've got some early addition hopping in there as well. Because you do get a little bit of the depth in there, and you will of course have a little bit of early addition hopping in this one. But yeah, mainly relying on the latter two, like I said. But on the fruity side of things, this beer is very nice. You do get a little bit of that stronger passion fruit, which I suspect will be from the El Dorado. Big, sort of almost oily, but still quite juicy mango. And underneath that, yeah, you've got the apricots, the papaya, and I get quite a bit of pineapple, actually. Yeah, I get quite a bit of pineapple out of this one. So yeah, a little bit of pungent passion fruit, big juicy mango, and some nice pineapple-y notes, and that's just backed up with softer apricot and papayas and stuff underneath. And then yeah, you do get that kind of orangey tangerine thing from the mosaic in this beer. So yeah, aroma wise, this one is pretty nice. As I say, nothing surprising from the style, actually, in compared to other things we've had from both Gamma and Garden in the past within this style bracket, but still a beer that does go together very, very nicely. So yeah, as I always say, take a bit of time to enjoy the aroma before you get stuck in, but I think it is about time that we tried this beer. So yeah, this one is the Echo Chamber, an 8.5% double IPA from Gamma Brewing in Herlev near Copenhagen in Denmark, and Garden Brewery from Zagreb, the capital of Croatia. Let's get stuck in. Slange, skål, cheers, Živieri. Oh yeah, that is very nice actually. First impressed of this one is big oaty creaminess, of course, but it's actually, in some ways, I find this one quite light in its mouthfeel and very juicy. It kind of reminds me a wee bit more of the Garden Brewery IPAs that I've had than it does of some of the Gamma ones. And of course, Croatia is a lot hotter than Denmark. I think we don't need to explain that. But yeah, with quite a few of the Croatian beers that I've tried, they were really nice. They just had a little bit of a lighter mouthfeel to them, but they also had a little bit of oiliness. I mean, we said the same about the Slovenian beers, because they were, Slovenia is a wine country, Croatia is to an extent as well. So yeah, you can taste this beer. It's lovely and light in its mouthfeel in a sense, but it's also got that little bit of oily character, and it's really nice and juicy. So mouthfeel wise, it does remind me more of the Garden Brewery ones than the Gamma ones. But like I say, this is a lovely big kind of oaty, creamy New England IPA. Lots of tropical fruit there. The green component isn't quite as pungent or as prominent in the flavour as I thought it was going to be from the aroma. So that's an interesting observation about this beer. So, yeah, the way that this beer goes together is very, very nice actually. And the more you drink of it, the kind of juicier it gets as well. So, yeah, in terms of the the actual flavour of the beer, then we'll break it down as we always do. So middle third of your palate, you get that lovely little bit of kind of fresh bread crusty character in there. Yeah. So you've got a nice little bit of that kind of fresh white bready bread crust forming the backbone of the beer. Not quite as kind of floury and things as I was describing it in the aroma, you know, it doesn't have quite that dry, powdery, floury kind of note to it, but yeah, you can feel toward the front of that middle third of your palate, there's a little touch of a woody character in there, and then yeah, above that, you're getting the barley malt, really, and I will say that you do get a bit more graininess out of the bread the further into the aftertaste that you go, we should say that. So, yeah, way that beer goes together is pretty damn nice, I have to say. Yeah, so with the on top of that kind of on top of that bread crusty sort of thing, you start to get the barley malt and the bread out of this beer. It's actually nowhere near as dense and as thick as I thought it was going to be, to be honest with you. It's actually kind of light, like right next to the bread crust, you've almost got a little bit of this slightly wholemeal brown bready character, but then yeah, above that you get the soft and quite airy fresh white bread out of the beer, and then above all of that you're getting the quite dense creamy oaty layer to it as well. So yeah, the malt base in this beer is actually quite straight shooting in some ways. It's not quite as complex as others what we've had, but I think that's because the wheat isn't in there. So yeah, it's interesting. You can feel a definite, you get the graininess, the kind of light and airy bread, and then the thicker, dense, more dense oats coming out of this one. So, yeah, the way that this beer goes together though is very, very nice. I do have to say that. But yeah, the oaty layer, as I say, I'm not sure exactly when this beer was canned or how old it is, but I think this is maybe about 6 weeks or so old. I think it's somewhere in that 6 weeks, 2 months. The reason you can tell that is the oats are always an indicator of how fresh your IPA is. The more creamy the oats are, the fresher the beer is, the drier they are, the older the beer is. But yeah, what you can feel with this beer is that on top of that bready layer, you get that dense thing there, and as you go down the middle line of your tongue, you can feel the kind of creaminess of the oats, and gradually as it spreads out toward the extremities of that middle third of your palate, you get a wee touch of you do get a little touch of the kind of dryness and things from the oats as well. But above that, in the dead centre of your palate, you can feel there's a nice little circle there, and that's where you start to get the sweet side of the beer. So in the dead centre of your palate, you've got a little bit of a boozy, caramelly note, but then as you move further out from that, it becomes a little bit more kind of butterscotchy, butter candy-like. Then there's just a little bit of a biscuity character out toward the extremities of that middle third of your palate there. So yeah, all the things you would expect from the malty side of a modern New England IPA. Or well, I say New England, I think for all intents and purposes it's New England Hazy. It just says double IPA though, but just going by the flavour profile, I'm not really sure we can describe this one as an American IPA actually. So yeah, this one I think we'll just say double IPA with it. But yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about the middle third of the palate with this beer. Let's go to the back third then. So the border region between middle third and back third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of bready build up in there, like soft fluffy white bread again. The base of the back third of the palate is a wee bit more grainy. That kind of lingers there as well. But then above that, you get a little bit of a more you can feel the brown bready layer is a little bit taller there. Remember, more grainy and bitter flavours come out toward the back of the palate, so you get a little bit more of that grainy and bitter flavour. Then above that you get the more fluffy and airy white bread character. coming out of the beer, which I think is very, very nice. So yeah, a little bit of a graininess there, a kind of brown bready layer, a fluffy or white bready layer as well, and then yeah, like I say, it goes together really nicely from that perspective. Above that though, you do almost get it feels like there's a little touch of wheaty bitiness to it, which is interesting because there is no wheat in this beer as far as it says. But then above all of that, you do get a more kind of airy and yeasty character to the beer. So let's just focus on that. So, yeah, above the kind of airy, yeasty, above that kind of bready layer that I was saying, you get that more airy, yeasty kind of note there. So it's like a kind of soft farmhousey bread with a little bit of an almost honeycomb type quality to it. And yeah, I find it's quite interesting how that comes out in this beer. But definitely on the back third of the palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you come further forward, it just squashes together and condenses that wee bit more. So yeah, good few things going on in this particular IPA. But yeah, that's the malty and yeasty side of things covered, I think. Let's go on to the hoppy side of the beer then. So back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of earthiness in there. As you move further forward, you've got a little bit of a herbal quality. And as you push toward the kind of front corners of the palate, you've got a bit more of a kind of floral aromatic spice in there. And you can taste with this beer, there is a little bit of early edition hop in there because you do have some of that deep, slightly dank floral depth to it. So that kind of gives away, but there is some early edition hopping in here. But yeah, you do get quite a spicy floral aromatic note out of this one. But round the front curve of the palate, it's definitely lighter and more grassy, I would say. And there's a wee touch of zestiness in there too, which is quite interesting. But let's focus on the front third of your palate and the fruity side of things. So border region between front third and middle third of your palate, again you get a little bit of that sort of bready build up there, white bready build up, and the base of the front third of the palate is a kind of smooth mix of like white bread from the barley malt and a little touch of the kind of oaty smoothness and density as well. So let's focus on that fruity side of the beer. As I always say, above that you've got that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out. So yeah, on the fruity side of things then, it's kind of what I would expect from these hops actually. At the very back of the front third of your palate, from the Eldorado, you're getting that stronger, pungent passion fruit sort of thing. Maybe it's just even a slightly touched grapefruity. But then yeah, as you move further forward, you've got a big, oily and juicy mango-y character in there. Then as you move to the as you move just a bit further forward from that, the mango kind of gives you a more oily, pineapple-y character, and the pineapple-y note kind of dominates the middle of the fruity part of the palate. But underneath that, of course, you're getting little elements of apricot and maybe a wee touch of papaya. That's the Idaho 7's influence in there. But both the Idaho 7 and the Eldorado are going to be involved in giving you these big mango-y type notes actually. So you need to bear this in mind. But yeah, in front of that, when you move into the front half of that front third of your palate, beyond the pineapple, you get the big, juicy tangerine notes from the you get a big juicy kind of tangerine note from the mosaic in this one. So yeah, the way that goes together, I think, is very, very nice. The way that just kind of all pieces together, I think, is great. So yeah, gets a big thumbs up from me in that particular regard. Yeah, I think the way that this beer goes together is really, really nice. So the fruity side of this one is just a little bit more oily, and the kind of oaty side of things just gives it that wee bit more density too. So it's quite different to the other IPAs I've had in recent times. But I love the oily fruity character in this one. I'm a sucker for kind of orangey leaning New England IPAs, or any kind of orangey leaning IPA, to be honest with you. So this one is kind of showing a few a few interesting characteristics to say the least. But yeah, I like how this goes together, so it gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, so in terms of the overall mouthfeel of this one, like I said, this one reminds me a bit more of the kind of Gamma Brewing, not the Garden Brewing brewery beers rather than the Gamma ones that I've had. It's on the fruity side of things, it's a wee bit more oily, which, like I said, you kind of get this when it comes to Croatian and Slovenian beer in my experience. They tend to be a little bit more oily, and that comes from the wine. They like their wines and their fruity flavours a little bit more oily, so I can see that in this beer. But at the same time, it's got quite a light and clean mouthfeel to it in some ways. So for me, this beer, it's mid-bodied, it's right in the middle of the spectrum. Like I say, a bit oily on one side, but a bit clean on the other. In terms of IBUs, I think this beer's got a wee bit more. So it has got a wee bit more bitterness. I want to say this one's maybe 40 or maybe even 50 IBUs. I actually want to say about 50, but always take my IBU counts with a pinch of salt. It's my weakest point of beer reviewing. The IBU count in this one, I think, is maybe about 50-ish. There's a wee bit more kind of depth to it in that way. But like I say, the malt base, lovely smoothness to it, a bit of kind of creaminess in a sense from the oats, and you also get that big kind of sweetness from it, and you've got that lovely, just juicy, fruity character as well. But overall, really, really nice beer, this one. Glad I got to try it. And yeah, definitely cool to see Garden and Gamma collaborating together. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that. This one was the Echo Chamber, an 8.5% double IPA from Gamma Brewing in Copenhagen in collaboration with Garden Brewery from Croatia. Let's leave it at that. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from both Gamma and Garden, and we will no doubt return to these guys at some point very, very soon. Till the next time, Slange just now. Check out my social media, check out the brewery's social media, and I will see you guys in the next review. Slange, Skull, cheers, and Żywieli.